Hey, what's up, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to talk about the overview of the sales documents that I've created for you, as well as the SOPs. Now, this is going to be a brief overview of all the documents. Some of the documents I'll be going deeper into in other videos, but in this one, I'll explain the ones that are not covered in the other ones. For example, the closing script or the setting script or the identity training that will be covered in other videos. And this one will cover the ones that won't be covered in those. So let's get straight into it and let me share my screen here. So these are the documents that I've prepared for acquisition, okay? And specifically for sales only in this case. Let's ignore the Instagram template, okay? But this is also important for the content and ad side of things to keep everything organized in that part of the process. Now, the closing script and the setting script and the identity we're going to skip because I'm going to cover that in another training specifically for those. Okay. And also the thank you video template is just a template for you to know how to create your thank you video for the video that people have to watch before they hop on a call, and also for your VSL. It's going to work as a two-in-one. Okay. So those are already covered. Now, the next thing that we want to cover, and the manager SOPs as well, that's true. That is covered in another video as well, which is the the hiring and management module. Okay, for you to learn how to manage and hire and manage setters and closers in case you need it. So what we have to cover is basically these four documents. Okay, let's start with this one, which is the easiest. This is the feedback document for calls or conversations. Okay, so the reason why we have this is to make sure that I can give you proper feedback on the conversations that you're having, as well as the reviews, as well as the convos that are you having, the calls. I mean, so conversations in the DMs and calls, obviously in Zoom calls, and I'll review those to give you feedback on how to improve each of those. Pretty simple, right? So here on the top, you'll have convo reviews. I'll put the username, and then I'll put the date when I reviewed it, and I'll put my notes here on each of those, and I'll create multiple of these in order to, to give feedback in multiple conversations. And then also call review, same thing. Okay, I'll give you the notes here. These are the notes, and I'll put the first and last name of the person, the date, and the link of the call. And then I'll do that for every single call that I review for you, like that. Okay, so that is quite straightforward, nothing too complicated. That is the first document. The second document is going to be, let's go over the setter SOPs. I'll leave the tracking for the end. So for the setter SOPs, um, the way this is structured, okay, this is a template. You can always change things, but the way this is structured is the type of the tasks that you have to do in the order that you have to do them throughout the day. So one is the first thing you do in the day, two is the second thing, three is the third thing, four is the fourth, and so on. Okay. So the way it's divided, and here at the end, we have two things that I'll mention right now. This is more for onboarding. Okay. So one is training, right? So if the setter that you have, or you yourself want to train in setting and training, setting training, they'll have this section. Okay. You'll have the script here and the identity training. And then you'll have the wins here in order to review that, and also the feedback on specific calls. Okay. And that's this document that we just talked about. So that's one of them. Now, the second one, and this link is actually incorrect, so change this before I forget. But basically, that is the training section. Then you have the role section, which is divided into three things: KPIs, right? The numbers that the person has to hit, the setter or you yourself, and what's the expected income based on, if it's for a setter, right? You want to have that expectation. Then the KCIs, which is the key culture indicators, right? The behaviors that people have to follow, and the people that you want to have inside of your company in order to have the most success, right? So these are behaviors that you've seen perhaps that you personally like to follow, the values, behaviors, and attitudes. And so you want the people to work for you that to have those exact same KCIs, culture indicators, in order to build a powerful culture and people that can actually succeed within the role that you're offering, right? And then finally, the terms, right? The terms of the position of the setter. And that's why I close this, because usually only have to do this in the beginning, and then you can close it off, both training and role. Okay. Now, there are 7 main tasks that a setter has to do. Okay. And the first thing he has to do, he or she, is to send the reminders. Okay. So the reminders are to be sent 48 hours before, 24 hours before, and then morning of. Okay. And there's one message per each, and you have to send that. Now, these are specific messages that work really well. They're proven and tested to increase the show rate. Second thing is cancellations. Okay. So these are the logins typically for the setter to log into Calendly. You put the logins here. And then this is the process of doing that, right? So what you want to do is check the form answers in the booked Slack channel, right? You're going to have a Slack channel called booked, based on the first module, that is going to show all the calls that are being booked. And based on that, you're going to be able to check what are the answers that people gave in the Calendly link, right, when they booked the call. So if they're qualified, then you want to mark them inside of Slack in the channel with a check mark, right? React with that. But this is in case that they might not be qualified, right? So if they're a student or unemployed, or they said they don't have any money, or they're from India or Africa, I have to repeat this, then you want to go through this process. This is what I've seen to be the best type of qualification to keep in the beginning. And you can even go more strict beyond this or looser it all depends on the traffic, right? If you have a lot of calls and you can afford to cancel more, I would cancel more based on data, right? Not just because, oh, when I used to take all these calls, I assumed that all these people wouldn't have the money. No, it's based on, okay, for this offer at this instance in this business with this type of funnel, all these people that are from India are not working out, right? Generally speaking, though, some people in some offers, India can work. Africa is really, really hard, unless it's South Africa, but even then. So I would just recommend you to cancel Africa and India, depending on the niche. Money offers, I would not keep. I would keep India and don't keep Africa. If it's not a money offer, then I would remove both. Okay. So what is the process, right? You basically want to go on Calendly and change, go on Calendly and cancel the call, right? And then change the status to canceled in the tracking sheet, right? Actually, sorry, cancel on Calendly. I don't need to write this. So cancel on Calendly, go on Calendly and cancel the call, and then change the status to canceled in the tracking sheet, right? And we'll get to the tracking sheet in a second. And then mark in booked with an X instead of a check mark, right? And then in the DMs, send this message. Hi, name. Unfortunately, our system cancels automatically when someone picks the option of, I don't have the financial resources. Sorry about that, but we can definitely rebook you in. I guess out of curiosity, what do you mean by the answer, by the way? This is whatever option is that they picked that made you cancel, right? If they said they had a student, they were a student, or they're unemployed, or no money, or in the India or Africa, I wouldn't message these people at all, actually, to qualify them. Only the others, in case they might have the money. Okay, sometimes they do. And this kind of gives them the opportunity to rebook back in. You can expect like 5 to 20% of people that you cancel to rebook back in. So you can save some from them, but at least you're not, like, most of them are not going to be qualified. So it's great to cancel them, right? And then after that, keep talking until you disqualify or rebook them because they qualify themselves. And that's it. So it's pretty simple. That's the number two. Okay. And this is kind of done throughout the day, but you also want to do it in the beginning of the day in case you've sent some links to the day before and people booked in your calendar. Now, next thing is team meetings. Okay. You want to have at least one call a day with, and this will be in the manager SOP. So you'll have the daily meeting with your setter and or your closer. And so you want them to have the numbers versus the projections and why, meaning like where they're at, what did they predict they would be at and why, right? And based on that, you can make analysis of what to do next. Then is one client or personal win, right? In order to keep the culture going, keep the energy going, and then any questions they might have. Next thing is to clear the inbox. Okay, this is the most important thing. This is what they should be spending all day doing after they've done these things. Okay, which is one, to follow the script in order to book calls. Two is update the tags in ManyChat based on the conversations they're having, right? Based on the situation. Three is book them in with a Calendly link, right? And this is how to book them in. You send them the link, obviously, and then you have these reminders every 24 hours in case they don't answer, right? Then once they're booked, send this message, right? And then finally, if in case the person has a strong personality trait, negative typically, or any other out of place convo that you want to kind of want to make the closer aware of, you want the person to post that inside of the Slack channel, right? Next thing is the follow-ups and outbound. So these are all the follow-ups that you should be doing. In no shows, you want to start with this one, right? Is everything okay? But if it's not a no-show, then just go straight into it. Or if it's after the first message of the no-show. And just go through this until you run out. And then once you get to this point, put into warm long-term, which is this tag right here, right? Now, outbound followers, this is how you reach out to them. Okay. These are the types of messages that you can send. And then outbound polls as well. Okay. Now, rescheduling is very similar as well, right? The closer will tag you, the closer, or the founder, right, will tag you in booked, right, as a setter, or you'll get a message from the prospect in DMs asking to reschedule. So the goal, what you have to do is mark canceled in call and status of the tracking sheet, right? We'll get to the tracking sheet in a second. Resend the calendar link to rebook, right? And once they schedule again, change call date in the original sheet row and delete new automate row, right? New automated row, because the data is input automatically inside of the tracking sheet. Exactly. So that's pretty much it. And obviously, if they don't book right away, you keep following up with them, following this process here. And then finally, we have the end of day report. And the end of day report is simple. It's put on Slack. This is for the setter. And you want to put the EOD and then the date of the EOD, right? Better to put it this way. And then you put here the touch points, the pitched, and then the booked. Okay. So that way you can keep track every day in case you need to look at it. So that's it for the setter SOP sample template. And the next that we'll cover is the closer SOPs template. All right, so this next doc is going to be the closer SOPs template. And what this is basically also the tasks and the SOPs that a closer or the person who acts as the closer, right, the founder, has to do on a daily basis. Okay. So the first thing is, and again, it's aligned based on, or it's organized based on the order of the tasks during the day. We still have the same training and role sections at the end of the doc, right? Explaining all of the wins and the script and the identity and the feedback given for specific call reviews, as well as the role kind of expectations. That's the same thing as the setting SOPs, but these are the tasks for 1 through 9. Okay, for a closer. So we start with the reminders for the follow-ups, right? So not the reminders for the first calls, but for the follow-up calls 48 hours before, 20 hours before, 24 hours before, and morning of. Then we have team meetings as well, right? Have the numbers ready, projections and why, personal win, client win ideally, and questions to ask. Then, they have to actually take calls. This is what the closer will spend most of their day doing, to take calls on time and use the script. And only if they're late to the call, ideally they use this message to tell the person who is about to hop on the next call, but closer is a little late. He will be another day will be another X minutes, right? So you say the time that you're going to be late and you ask them if it's okay if they wait or if they prefer to reschedule. This works really well. The setter can do this, or the closer ideally does this while he's on the previous call. Next thing is enrollment, right? So once the person agrees to join, first thing is to collect the money, right? And so this is where you can put all the plans, right? The pay in full link, the 2 times link, the 3 times link, the 4 times link, 5 times, 6 times link, and then the custom plan, right? Like if you want to create a custom plan, I don't recommend this, honestly. Best to just have these, but in case you want some more flexibility, you can do it. Also, bank transfer to Wise account, so you can put here the actual details of the account. Wise being like a bank, so Wise or /bank account, whichever works for you. PayPal, right? You can also add the link here, and then you can also, if you want to collect just a deposit, you can collect the deposit and then share this Google Doc, which usually is a resource that you can give to somebody once they collect on the deposit, right? So you would add the link here. To add a link, you just have to go here on top and click on insert link. Okay. Next step is to get them to book an onboarding call. You just add the link here, get them to join the community here, right? So you add a link here as well. And let's say that all the communication will be there. And then finally, while still on the call with them, create a one-on-one chat and send welcome message in channel. This might not be needed, but definitely the second one is needed. The first one, you already might have. If it's on Slack, it's automatically created. If it's on Discord, you will have to create a one-on-one chat. And if it's on school, also, you don't have to create one, and you can just send a welcome message. Next thing is no shows and what you do, right? So when a person no shows, it's officially a no show when it's been at least 5 minutes, but ideally more like 15 minutes when you mark them no shows, right? If it's been 15 minutes and they haven't hopped on and they haven't told you they want to reschedule. So, but I'd say 2 minutes in, even 1 minute sometimes, you want to send a message on IG, SMS, email, and WhatsApp saying, "Hi, name, this is Closer from company. Are you still available for the call today or would you like to reschedule?" Call them twice on Skype or whatever you want to call them with, and then tag the call with no show. No, sorry, actually, you want to tag the setter with no show in the book channel thread of the lead. And fourth is mark the lead no show in the in status of the tracking sheet. Okay, to keep things organized. And I'll get to the tracking sheet in just a sec. Next thing is rescheduling. Okay, so with rescheduling, what to do is if they ask you to reschedule, right, the prospect, then tag the setter in the thread of the lead and booked. Of course, if it's not the setter, it would be like the business owner, of course, right? The closer has to do this. Mark canceled in the tracking sheet and add to notes to reschedule to be determined. Okay, so that we know that it still needs to be rescheduled. Updates tracking, right? So after you have a call, you want to update the tracking sheet, the calls tracking sheet. So that way, you keep everything organized. This is the CRM basically. So you'll have that there. And this is a specific training for that, but actually we won't be needing this anymore because I have this video now. And then finally, we have this process, right? This is how you do follow up specifically and the explanation. I don't believe the setter has this. No, not exactly, and that's fine. Actually, it's more important for closers, or at least needs to be more nuanced. And so you'll have this video explaining how to do that, as well as the sequence of messages that you can use. Okay, and these two images will be the images that you can use of results in order for a client to be attracted to hopping on the call again and then closing. And this is the timing, right? The cadence of when you should send. So you want to message 4 times in the next 7 days, right? And call once, and then message and call once after 1 week, and then after 2 weeks, and then after 1 month. Okay. I'll write this then after 2 weeks, and then after 1 month. There we go. And then if the response mark as deal lost, which is basically just striking through in the CRM. And then the final task is to do an end of day report. Again, this is for the closer, right? And the end of day report has 4 main parts. Okay. You have number of follow-ups done, and you just write it here. Then you have the outcomes on the calls, right? Name, call type, offer, no offer, objections, outcome, and then notes on the call. And you do it for all the calls that day. Then you want the closer to rate themselves from 1 to 10 in terms of energy, clarity, drive, inspiration, and ask themselves if they served people today. Did they honor the promises to themselves? Did they operate at their potential on that day? And are they going to hit projections? And then the overall performance would be here. And then overall asking, how was their day and where do you need help? Actually, this can be simplified with just this, makes it easier. And then here's the answer. So that's pretty much it for a closer. And now the final thing that we want to look at is the sales tracker template. So this is basically the CRM and the numbers, okay, the tracking of the numbers. So there are 3 main sheets. You have the numbers sheet, you have the calls sheet, and the cash sheet, okay? The number sheet is what's going to tell you exactly what the numbers are and what the constraint is, okay? It's a smart type of sheet that will tell you all those things. The calls will just be the CRM, right? This is every time a call is booked, this Zap will turn on and it will trigger it to fill these lines here automatically. And then cash, same thing. Okay. When you get a sale, it will show up here as well. Okay. So that's pretty much that. Now let's go one by one. Okay. Numbers you have on the top here. This is the explanation. Okay. So you have the dates here, right? This is going to tell you when it is, week/month. I'll tell you why this is in a second. Spend, meaning ad spend. Okay. Leads, how many leads you got. Booked is how many calls you booked, right? Then booked for is when those calls are booked for, right? So it will show up usually eventually would equalize to pretty much the same. Then qualified is from the calls that were booked for, how many you kept, right? So it's basically the calls that were booked minus the calls that were canceled, right? Then taken is the calls that were actually taken. Okay. Closed is the calls that were closed from the taken, of course. Price is, of course, price. And then collected upfront. Okay. That's how much was collected in the initial payment when people closed. So not in installments, just the initial payment. And then collected total, which is an upfront plus the installments. And then ratio is basically these are different things, different metrics that you can look at if you need to. So you got ROAS, you got booked percentage, show percentage, close percentage, and ROAS. Okay, so you can keep track of your data. And then, of course, here on the right side, you have changes, which is all the things that you're changing on that week or that month in order to improve the metrics overall, right? Or any overall changes like hires, changes in the funnel, changes in the sales process, and things like that. This line below is very important because this is a calculator, okay? And it accompanies these for that very same reason, because it allows you to predict what numbers you need based on your current numbers in order to be able to hit, okay, those projections. So, for example, in this case, to make 40K upfront, this is the driving number of all of these others, okay? So to make 40K per month, you need to have a 5K price point, right? This is upfront, 5K price point. That will eventually lead you to collect 100K per month, right? Once the installments stack up, you will need to close 20. Okay, this is assuming that you're collecting 2,000 upfront, right? So you have to change this based on that. You have to make adjustments on the formulas based on that. That is assuming that you have a 20% close rate, right? 0.2. So that means you need to take 100 calls. That means you need to have you're going to have a 70% show rate, right? 0.7. So you need 143 calls that are qualified in the calendar waiting to be taken, and 30% no show, of course. Then from that, you have this next number, which is 30%, right? You have a 70% cancellation rate. So, this will be 30% of this. Then obviously this will be the same number as this, and once things stabilize. And then the ratio between leads and booked, in this case, should be 10%, right? So you should book 10% of your leads into calls. So that's why it's 0.1. And then you have ad spend as well, which should be 25% of at least 25% of the collected upfront. So which indicates your ROAS, right? 10,000 spent, 40,000 upfront collected. And that's pretty much it. That's for the calculator, right? So if you change this number, let's say you want to make 100K upfront, right? Boom, everything changes. All the numbers kind of add up to whatever you need. And of course, you can change the ratios whenever you want. Now, the next thing is the months. Okay, so the months are here condensed in order for you to have, you could close them all up, right? And you'll have all the months here. So you can see the progression from month to month, but you also have the weeks. And the weeks don't necessarily end at the end of the month. They can go into the next month. So you can actually see the progress week by week. So it has the best of both worlds. And so same thing here, right? The numbers are here and they're automatically calculated from this CRM here once the calls are coming in, and they're updated on the status, right? Which we'll get to in a second. Last thing is that this is a smart sheet, meaning it will tell you exactly what the constraints are. So for example, in this leads, what this formula says is that if it's above $10, the cost per lead, then it will light up as red, right? Which is not good, right? So for example, if I put here 8, it will show up as red. But if I put here 10, it won't, because it's exactly 10. It's not a more than 10, right? Cost per lead. And of course, if I put 11, it will be fine, right? So that's for this first one. For booked, and it will show up as red when the booking rate, right, is less than 10%, right? 0.1%. 0.1 actually. So as you saw, if it's 10, it's fine because that means 10% is one, right? But if it's 11, it will show up as red because we're not, it's more like 8%, right? Or 9% instead of 10. And of course, if we do 20, even worse, right? So that's next one. For booked for, it doesn't have any because it's not relevant. For qualified, this is the cancellation rate, right? So it shows up as red when you're canceling more than 80% of the calls, right? When it's less than 0.2, or you're canceling more than 60% of the calls. Sorry, canceling less than, I'll actually put 7. So if you're canceling less than 30% of the calls, then it will show up as red as well. Okay. So that's another one. For taken, of course, that's going to be the show rate. So if the show rate is less than 60%, it will show up as red. Close rate, if the close rate is less than 20%, it will show up as red. If the price point is less than, actually, I put here 48, but this needs to be in reality 62. Okay. So if the price point is less than 62, then it won't work. Okay. And so in that case, I need to change this up in order for this to match up, right? So you can see all the numbers are changing, are getting the red color is gone because it's at least 6,200. Why 6,200? Well, because 4 times 6,200 is 25K, which times 4 is 100K in a month, right? So it's the perfect number to get to 100K. And of course, you don't collect everything up front always, but at least eventually you'll get there. And so that means you have to close 4 per week. 4 times 6,200, that's what makes it 25K. So it makes it super easy, right? 4 a week is doable. You just have to close 16 a month. So it's absolutely doable. The next thing is collected upfront. Okay, this will be the calculation of the ROAS. If the ROAS is less than 3x on collected upfront cash, that this will show up as red, right? So for example, 100 to 1,000, that puts us at 10x, right? A ROAS. If it's 1,000, right, it's going to show up as red because it's 1 to 1. It's 1x. If it's 500, it's going to be 2x, and it's still going to show up as red. 750, getting closer, still not, right? Sorry, actually the other way around. 250, now it's good, right? This is 4x. So 333 is 3x, so it will be exactly the amount. And then 334 is where it becomes red. There we go. Exactly. So, and then collected total doesn't have any because that's a delivery problem in case it's red. So that's the numbers, and that's how you see, like whenever it pops up red, that means that's the constraint, and that's what you have to fix. And you have to go to the module around constraints, the constraint theory, in order to be able to fix that. Okay. Next thing is the calls. All the calls that are booked will be shown here automatically. Okay. And there are only a few here of these in order to keep track of. Okay. So when the call comes in, you will see that it will show here the when it's booked and when it was booked and when it was booked for, right? The numbers that we just looked at before. So let's say it was booked on the 2nd and it was booked for the 3rd, right? That makes more sense. Then the first and last name will show up here. The link or handle of the person will show up here. And then this is the status, right? And the status we'll get to in a second. No, actually, let's get to it now. So the status is there's 4 main statuses. You have either closed, taken, no show, closed, taken, no show, canceled, or empty. Okay. Empty means that the call hasn't happened yet, right? So today is the 18th of February. So, if it was for tomorrow, then it's like the call hasn't been taken, right? So it's like, of course, you wouldn't fill this in, and that will come into the numbers as well, right? But since let's say it's in the past, it's already been taken. If you close a call, then mark it closed. If you mark it taken, that means you didn't close it, but you did take the call. If it's a no show, then you mark it no show. And of course, if actually potentially it's yeah, doesn't matter. So if it's a no show, you do that, and then if it's canceled, that means it was rescheduled, right? Or it's been asked to be rescheduled, or you just canceled it yourself, right? And you put it here. You always want to have only one line per person. So if they rebook, you need to delete that line by right clicking here on the left side, deleting, and putting the new date of the call here, changing the date of the call only, not the original date, just the date of the call. The next thing you want to do is add here in case, let's say you take the call, right? But you didn't close on the 1st, but you booked a follow-up call for the 5th of Jan, for example, right? based on this, then it's going to this is going to be the date of that call. Because if you close them, then it will show up in the right place, right? You can see now that if I, let's say, do it the week afterwards, technically it should be in the third, right? If it's a close, but it's not because it's on the 8th, right? The column is on the 8th. So it shows up here as one closed. Whereas if I delete this date, it will show up in the week before. Exactly. There we go. Right. Now the next thing is the follow-up, right? If it's you didn't book a follow-up call, but you just have a follow-up date to keep following up with the person, you put it here as well, right? And this is marked as red whenever it's empty or the date is before the date of the day, so you don't let anybody slip through. This is super important, right? And then finally, we have here also the notes, okay, that you had on the call. So the notes should have a few things. You have the temp check, right, from 1 to 10. Then you have if you made an offer or not. And then you have the objections, the outcome, and then the plan and collect in case you close them. Okay, super simple. And you just put all the notes here. Putting the notes is very important because then when you have a follow-up, especially long-term follow-ups, you'll know what happened. So you can kind of recollect the information and have a better idea of what happened. Next thing is cash. Okay, last and but not least, definitely, is all the cash that you're making, both first and first payment and also installments. Okay, so this will also pop up here automatically based on Stripe. It will show up the date, the name of the person, how much it was collected, and then if it's a first or in payment or an installment, and you just have to do that. Like for now, at least, you'll have to at the end of each week select if it's first or installment just to keep track of the payments. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think I'm missing anything. This will be later. Yep, that's about it. Those are all the documents that I want to cover in this video. So hope that was helpful. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.